agrees. Here we go. Two. Hey, everybody. This is Albert, the income stream specialist, where we come on every day on Increase Your Bottom Line show to show you how you can take your business to the next level. How when you follow our guest advice and tips, it will also change your life. Remember, if you're watching this, sharing is caring. We're on all social media platforms always. So as you're watching this, if you could share this, we would love it. We would love it so we can get it out there. Well, guess what? Today, we're talking today with Danielle Perlman Goodwin. She's an amazing person. As you see is when I talk about my blueprint to increase your profits. And she is part of one of my blueprints because it says going to events and showing up to groups. Well, me and Danielle are part of a group, Rise Up Now on Facebook, which is a group that gets you empowered. But that's why when I always say, you got to go out and see events, you're going to meet amazing people. And that's how I met Miss Danielle. Danielle is an awesome person. She takes your ideas and turning them to books and memories to live. She wants to, what's the word you told me a few minutes ago?
Legacy.
You want to turn your legacy. You want to make your business your legacy. You want to make your life a legacy because you want to live like the movie Fame. I want to live forever. Baby, remember my name. Well, guess what? Unless you tell the world what you are and who you are, it's going to die, dude. You'll die watching Netflix and nothing will go on. So now, Miss Daniela, please tell me where you live and what you do after I got you started.
Okay, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Albert. I really appreciate it. And I love that Facebook group. I've met so many amazing people, including yourself. So I appreciate that, you mentioned how we met as well. I live in the Chicagoland area in a north suburb. And I'm from Chicago originally and have lived here really my whole life. And right now I have a book coaching business where I help leaders, including entrepreneurs, speakers, and coaches, unleash their powerful legacies in book form. And that's so they can inspire and transform lives.
So how would you say, first of all, let's back up a little bit. How did you get started in the legacy business?
It's a great question. I have a background in journalism and digital marketing, and I worked at a local publishing company in the Chicagoland area for 3 years as the social media coordinator. And I was tasked with all kinds of content creation, advertising, budget, all of that stuff. And what happened was I had this epiphany when I was listening to Rachel Hollis's book, Girl Stop Apologizing. And that was last year. It was March of 2019. And I had this realization that I no longer wanted to only provide digital marketing services for small businesses because that was the business I had created for myself for a number of months at that point. And I also at the time had a 9-month-old. And I said, I really feel like it is my legacy to help others unleash their stories and help them write books, help them write manuscripts. So I decided to start advertising my services, and I started going out and, like you said, getting speaking engagements and letting people know about what I was doing now. I let my network know, so it was such a wonderful experience. And now I've been doing this for a little over a year, and it's been incredible. I've met so many amazing people. I've had amazing clients, and I truly love the work that I do.
Okay. What are some of the, I start to talk about how the legacy, couple of things here. Talk about how legacy is important, could be important for your business and what it could do for you.
Yeah. So in terms of, what was your first question again?
Okay. how can this relate to somebody's business? Why is a legacy important? Would you say, I have an office, tax office. Why is that book important? Why is legacy important for somebody who has a business?
So another really good question. What happens is that when you're a business owner, you need to establish authority and credibility no matter what you do, right? You can be an accountant, you can be, you can be a financial representative, you can be a healer in the spirituality space. It doesn't really matter what your business is in terms of establishing that credibility and authority with your target niche, with your target audience. And one of the best ways to establish that credibility is by writing a book about your beliefs, your values, and that showcases your legacy to your target audience, so they can clearly see what you stand for and what problems you'll solve for them, what you will do to help them.
All right. Now, give us, because this is like an education show. Give me like 4 tips people have to, if I have a business, what are the 4 tips that they would need to start writing a book? I mean, what are some of the things that you would need to start putting a legacy? We're going to call it maybe pre-book. How's that?
Yep, absolutely. So one of the first steps is figuring out what your message is for the book, like just your message or your theme. So every book, whatever genre you are writing in, and particularly for business owners, we will assume that for this conversation, we are talking about nonfiction. So this could be partially memoir, this could be partially self-development, self-help, how-to, something in one of those categories. And one of the first things that I always tell my clients is we work on what that message or promise is to the reader. So when you read a book, you know from the first chapter, from the intro, what you will learn. What is the promise that the author is making to you, right? It could, if it's a how-to book, it could be 5 steps to become, a better accountant, right? Or, I'm, for example, listening to Grant Cardone's book from 2010, I believe, called If You're Not First, You're Last.
Oh, that's my favorite book, by the way.
Is it really?
I've been wanting or the 10X rule. I've read them all.
I love Grant Cardone.
Go home. That's what he pretty much shows in that book.
Yeah, so that's a great example. I love what he does because you know what he's going to tell you from the introduction, right? So when you are thinking of writing a book in this category, I also recommend looking at 3 to 5 other books in the same category as what you're writing, right? So if you're writing a how-to or self-helper, it's depicts part of a program, right? You can look at, for example, Grant Cardone's books, right? And see how he structures the his manuscripts, his books, and see what you like and what you don't like. And I don't like to say, we don't want to necessarily copy anything, right? That's not.
But it inspires you.
Exactly. It inspires you. So the other tip I always have, my third tip, is to get really clear about who you want to read your book, who is in that target audience and that target niche, right? So go through, you can even do this exercise if you have had a business and have had clients, go through those clients and say, do they have any commonalities? Like, how do I help these people? What have I done to help them? And you could even interview them or ask them and say, hey, ask them 2 or 3 questions. Like, how did you find my work helpful? and really survey them and use them as examples. And you can even ask them, I'm doing this with a couple of clients right now. You can ask somebody in your target audience to be a part of your book, and you can quote them from, so that you also have that social proof in your book.
Here's a question that I kind of know the answer, but I want to hear what you say. What was somebody says to them, like, oh, my stuff isn't good enough? What would you tell to somebody who says, oh, I don't know anything, or my stuff ain't good enough, or I'm going to compete with Grant Cardone and Tony Robbins? I think a lot of people would give me the self-doubt. I was one of them until before I wrote my book, The Perception System, that I had self-doubt that, oh, it's a big field. Okay, since it's such a big field, nobody's ever going to buy it. Nobody's going to talk to me. So what for?
That's another really good question. So I have some notes here too. So if I'm looking down.
It's okay. That's what we're here. This is an education center.
Yes, I love education. That's funny. So one of the big things that I teach is, I call it the writer's mindset. And what I truly believe is that when you have those limiting beliefs and that fear, and you lack confidence in your idea, we all have to start before writing the book, before, what we just talked about, before the idea of starting to write, starting to think about the promise, the theme, the target audience, reading these other books, we have to start with the mindset, right? There are mindset coaches. There's a lot of stuff around mindset, right? There's a lot of really good, solid books around mindset. One of my favorites is Carol Dweck's book about mindset, about the fixed versus growth mindset, and going from a fixed to growth mindset. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. It's a really, really good book. So one of the things that I always say is that I want everybody who's listening, who, hears this show today, that, this is what I tell my clients too. Every individual has a different take on an idea, right? So I believe that ideas recirculate. I also believe that a lot of fear, a lot of that self-doubt comes from not knowing if your idea has any value or if your story has any value. Okay. But I want you to realize, if you're listening, if you're hearing this, your story can only be told in your own way, from your unique perspective. That's why there are memoirs, right? Memoirists write from their perspective. If this is the example I always give, right? If you are in the room with one other person and you experience something profound, you're watching the news or you're looking, you experience some kind of profound event in that room, you have a conversation, the two of you will have different takes on what happened that day, on what happened in that event, in that room, right? You could write different books about your different perspectives. So if we break it down to that minuscule level and then we expand it, you say, wow, you're right. I can write about my unique perspective, right? So I believe too that that's why I call this the writer's mindset, because I've worked with people who have writer's block, and I believe that writer's block has everything to do with mindset. Did that answer your question?
For sure, for sure. What else would you want to add to people who are trying to write a book or stuck writing a book?
So a lot of times I find that we have limiting beliefs in relation to our writing. And some of us are better speakers than writers. Some of us are better writers than speakers. Right. So if you consider yourself to be a better speaker than writer, and you are trying to write, but nothing is coming out, I always recommend actually speaking and using a voice system to get those words out. Right. And that's a lot of podcasters. That's why, podcasts are, and live streams, right? So that's a really good way of actually being able to transcribe and get your book out there. There's a service, I haven't used it personally, but I've heard really good things. It's called rev.com.
Oh, I use that all the time.
All right. Yep.
Rev, it's very easy. They charge $1 a minute to do it. Here's the trick, and this is kind of will be my next book out there, is how to take Facebook Lives and make it a book, which by the way, there's a company out there called Headliner that they'll do 10 minutes. You know, they don't do, Rev will do as long as you want it $1. Only difference is with Rev is it'll work fine for you, Danielle, but you're a writer. You're just going to have to edit it because it's going to be computer language. So somebody's going to have to sit there and edit it.
Right.
But hey, it's out there. So you get an editor, at least it's out.
Right. Right. And I've actually been experimenting with some other apps as well. There's one called I think it's veme.ly. It's VEME.ly. There's Snapseed. There's AutoCap. I know there's also an app for iPhones. I can't remember, but I personally have an Android, so I haven't been able to experiment with, with apps that are specifically for iPhones. But, the other thing with self-doubt that I wanted to mention is that I feel like when you have a motivated individual who wants to write a book and they have this fear that succumbs them, what I see very often is that it's not necessarily about, writing. It's about the fear of failing and about what success means to them. So one of my first questions I always ask everybody to think about is, what does it mean to you to be a successful author? Because success has a lot of different meanings to a lot of different people. If you want to write a memoir and self-publish and have it just for your family and friends, that's amazing, right? If you want to write a book about your business and you want to be a bestseller and you want a book launch and you want, the whole shebang, then it is more work, but you can do that too. You just have to, you have to believe, right? That's the first step. And for limiting beliefs, I always say the first step for if you have a limiting belief is acknowledging the limiting belief. You have to write it down and you have to repeat it and say, okay, I will acknowledge this and I can change the language I use, right? So one example I always give is I am not a good writer, right? But then we change that to be I can become a better writer.
Oops. Wait, hold on. I was playing with something. Let me get back.
Oh, I'm here now.
That's what I wanted. Okay. I was trying to see if I can bring you like one picture, inside Miss Danielle, so you could have the whole screen, and it didn't work. But
that's okay. That's all right. Experimenting. Yeah. So, that's really important that I talk about that a lot. I'm actually working on a book myself about the writer's mindset. And part of this training that I do is actually going to be a part of a course that I'm going to be launching in the next few months that I'm really excited about. So
what's going to be the name of the course?
I'm not sure yet. I haven't decided.
No working title yet?
The working title is How to Become a Successful Author.
There you go. That's a start.
Yep.
All right. So let me ask you a couple of fun things here.
Sure.
You're a Chicago person, which means are you an outdoor winter person or you're a summer person since you're in Chicago when it's cold?
I am 100% a summer person. I will go out and adventure in the winter. I'm not really one to stay inside. I really like being outside and I love walking. I have been known to take walks with my son, even in the rain. Today, we'll probably go on a walk later today in the rain.
How about when it's like January? Now I'm making fun because of, when it's real cold. Would you take out your son during mid-January, when it's usually the cold months, or you're just like, you'll hunker down in that little heat?
Yeah, we usually try to go outside. It depends on how cold though, right? So if a couple years ago when we had, I think it was last winter, we had the polar vortex and there were wind chills up to negative 52 degrees Fahrenheit. And it's like that's not safe at that point to, venture outside. But if it's, 30 degrees, 20 degrees Fahrenheit, then yeah, we'll go outside for a little bit and, see how it goes.
By the way, a polar vortex in Miami is with my wife and our area would be if it goes down to 50 for 3 days. The state of Florida and Miami Beach is like, you got to stay in as
Right.
opposed to January. All right, before I let you go, because I love everybody's time, how can they get a hold of you? Give it how they couple of last things before we go.
Yeah,
Parting last
thank you.
shots, and what's the last thing you want to say, and how can they get a hold of you? And
Great.
any free gifts.
Okay, thank you. So my free gift is I actually have a couple, but the best one is to join my Facebook group. And I do live weekly trainings in there. And that is called Unleash My Book. And the link to that is facebook.com/groups/unleash my book. And if you give your email address, if you want to, then I have a free PDF that you will get that will be about how you can conquer some of these limiting beliefs that we talked about today. And that's one of the best ways to get a hold of me. And then my website is danielleperlingood.com. And in terms of one of the last things I'd like to say, or the last thing I'd like to say is, I truly believe that everybody here, everybody watching, everybody listening does have a legacy, does have a story to share. And it's just a matter of believing in yourself that you have the capacity and ability to unleash that within you.
All right, thank you, Miss Daniela. You've been talking to Miss Danielle Perlin-Goodman. She takes your ideas and turning them into books. Remember, this is the income stream business success strategy. Remember, sharing is caring. So if you're watching this, please share us. You also can get a free copy of my blueprint, 5 steps to increase your profits. All you got to do is text 267 taxman to 26786. And you can follow me on all social media channels. I'll put everything in below in a few minutes after the broadcast. Just follow me at albertc360.com. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And remember, sharing is caring. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Albert.
Here you go. It is 9.